The massive command deck of the Galactic Council's flagship buzzed with quiet excitement as alien officers prepared for what they believed would be the shortest military demonstration in galactic history. Admiral Kex adjusted his crystalline form against the observation throne, his translucent blue body reflecting the soft lights of the bridge displays. The Altari had ruled space warfare for over 3,000 years, and today would prove once again why their empire remained untouchable. The humans actually accepted our challenge. General Thane spoke through a cybernetic voice modulator, circuits glowing beneath his metallic skin. His ship, the Binary Dawn, hung in formation alongside two other massive vessels, each one capable of destroying entire planets. Their primitive minds cannot comprehend what they face today. War leader Grix slammed his armored fist against the tactical display, causing several smaller alien officers to flinch. The Corvin warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scarred hide telling stories of 100 battles across the galaxy. "Let them come," he growled, tusks gleaming. The Iron Fist has never met an enemy ship that could withstand a direct assault. These humans will learn why the Corvin hegemony has conquered 40 star systems. 3 months earlier, humanity had shocked the galactic community by developing faster-than-light travel, using methods that made no sense to established physics. Their crude jump drive shouldn't have worked according to every known law of space-time, yet somehow they did. The Galactic Council had no choice but to grant them membership, but the ancient alien civilizations weren't about to welcome these newcomers as equals. The test was simple and had been used for centuries to determine the military standing of new species. One ship from the candidate race would face 3 vessels from established council powers in simulated combat. Victory meant favorable trade routes, advanced technology sharing, and respect throughout the galaxy. Defeat meant relegation to minor colony status, restricted to their home system for the next 100 years while they matured as a civilization. No species had ever won their first challenge. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the massive alien ships through the view screen. At 62, he had fought in Earth's brutal colonial wars, where resources were scarce and victory often depended on making impossible decisions under pressure. His gray hair was cropped short in military fashion, and his calm blue eyes showed no hint of concern his crew might be feeling. "Sir," Lieutenant Cole spoke from the navigation station, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. "Enemy vessels have taken positions at the designated coordinates. The Altari ship is broadcasting some kind of harmonic frequency that's interfering with our sensors. And the Nexus ship is already attempting to probe our computer systems." Chief Engineer Blake added from his position at the engineering console. "I've isolated our networks, but they're persistent. Their AI is trying every backdoor protocol in the galactic database." Captain Reed moved between the stations on his compact bridge, checking readiness reports from his crew of 200. The Defiant was barely 400 meters long, a tiny destroyer compared to kilometer-long alien dreadnoughts they faced. His ship had been built in Earth's orbital shipyards using human engineering principles that prioritize function over form, reliability over elegance. "Dr. Walsh, what's our tactical analysis of their capabilities?" Reed asked the science officer, a woman whose expertise in alien technology had earned her a place on this historic mission. "The Altari ship uses crystal matrix technology that can bend reality itself," she replied, consulting her displays. "Their weapons can phase shift matter at the molecular level, essentially making their targets cease to exist. The Nexus vessel operates as a collective intelligence, with every system interconnected through quantum processing that can predict enemy movements before they happen. As for the Corvin ship, it's a pure bruiser, designed to ram through anything in its path while firing antimatter charges." The alien commanders watched with amusement as the small human vessel took its position in the designated combat zone, an ancient battlefield littered with the debris of ships from wars fought long before Earth had developed agriculture. The wreckage provided cover and obstacles, but also served as a reminder of what happened to those who challenged the established order. "Look at that pathetic little ship," Admiral Kex's voice chimed like distant bells. "Their hull appears to be made of simple metal alloys. Our crystal beams will slice through it like it's not even there. My analysis indicates their weapon systems are purely kinetic," General Thane added, his mechanical voice devoid of emotion. Magnetic acceleration cannons firing solid projectiles. Such primitive technology hasn't been used in serious warfare for over 2,000 years. War leader Grick studied the human vessel through his tactical display, his warrior instincts telling him something felt different about these newcomers. "They're too calm," he muttered to himself. Any sane species would be broadcasting surrender terms by now, but they're just sitting there waiting. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched a live broadcast of what every military expert predicted would be a massacre. The human ship looked like a museum piece next to the sleek alien vessels, its angular design and visible weapon mounts marking it as the product of a civilization that still thought war was about throwing metal at the enemy. Captain Reed opened a channel to all ships in the combat zone, his voice carrying the steady confidence that had earned him command of humanity's first deep space warship. "This is Captain Reed of the United Earthship Defiant. We're ready to begin whenever you are. Just want you to know, we appreciate you giving us this chance to show what humans can do when we put our minds to it." The alien commanders exchanged glances that would have been laughter if translated to human expressions. The challenge was about to begin, and they expected it to be over within minutes once the humans realized they were facing forces beyond their comprehension. Admiral Voss nodded to his tactical officer. "Signal all stations to prepare for combat operations. This is what we came here for." The stage was set. 3 of the galaxy's most advanced warships against 1 human vessel that looked like it had been built in someone's backyard. What the aliens didn't understand was that humans had been building things in their backyards for thousands of years, and some of those things had changed the course of history. The test was about to begin, and Captain Reed smiled slightly as he watched the alien ships move into attack formation. They had no idea what they were about to face. The first attack came without warning as Admiral Kex decided to end the demonstration quickly. His crystalline fingers danced across the harmonic control interface, channeling the power of his ship's reality-bending weapons into a focus beam that could unmake matter at the atomic level. The Crystal Harmony's main cannon charged with sound like singing glass, building to crescendo that made the hull itself vibrate in perfect resonance. Firing crystal beam at maximum intensity, Kex announced to the other alien commanders, "This will show them the futility of challenging powers beyond their understanding." The beam lanced out across space, a stream of pure energy that twisted reality around it, bending light and warping the fabric of space-time itself. It struck the defiant dead center, engulfing the small human ship in a blazing aurora of destructive force. The energy was enough to vaporize a small moon, and the alien commanders watched with satisfaction as their sensors registered the massive power discharge. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the energy dissipated, and the Defiant emerged from the blast completely intact, its hull glowing with absorbed heat, but showing no signs of damage. Small vents along its sides opened to release the excess energy in controlled bursts, like a ship designed to drink destruction rather than be destroyed by it. Captain Reed's voice crackled across all communication frequencies, carrying a tone of mild disappointment rather than fear. "Is that all you've got? My grandmother's oven runs hotter than that." Admiral Kex stared at his readings in disbelief. Every sensor confirmed that his weapon had struck the human ship with enough force to annihilate any known vessel. Yet their crude metal hull had somehow absorbed the entire attack. "Impossible," he whispered, his crystalline form flickering between colors as confusion disrupted his normally perfect resonance. The Defiant responded with what appeared to be laughably primitive weapons. Magnetic acceleration cannons along its hull began firing simple metal slugs, chunks of iron and steel launched at incredible velocity, but still far below the speed of light. The first salvo consisted of 6 large projectiles that tumbled end over end as they crossed the distance between ships. "They're firing solid metal at us," General Thane observed, his cybernetic brain already calculating trajectories. "Our quantum shields will deflect those projectiles before they come within 1,000 kilometers of our hull." The Binary Dawn's defensive systems activated automatically, creating a shimmering barrier of energy that could redirect any physical attack. The 6 human projectiles struck the shield and bounced away harmlessly, spinning off into the debris field where they disappeared among the ancient wreckage. War leader Grix laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Even their weapons are primitive. No wonder they accepted our challenge so calmly. They have no idea what real warfare looks like. Captain Reed studied his tactical display as the first salvo results came in. Interesting, he murmured to his weapons officer. Their shields work exactly like Dr. Walsh predicted. Lieutenant Blake, prepare spread pattern 7. The second human salvo looked identical to the first. 6 metal slugs fire from the same magnetic cannons. But as they crossed space toward their targets, each projectile split open like a flower, releasing hundreds of smaller fragments that scattered in seemingly random directions. The fragments moved in chaotic patterns, some spinning, others tumbling, many appearing to follow completely illogical trajectories. Admiral Kex tried to track the incoming swarm with his ship's targeting systems, but the crystal matrix computers couldn't find any pattern to predict. The fragments moved like debris blown by stellar wind rather than guided weapons, their paths intersecting and diverging in ways that made no mathematical sense. Our predictive algorithms cannot lock onto the trajectory patterns, General Thane reported, his collective consciousness struggling with the chaos. The fragments appear to be following random vectors with no tactical purpose. Several dozen of the tiny metal pieces slipped through microscopic gaps in the Altari shields, gaps that should have been impossible to hit by chance. They struck the Crystal Harmony's hull with tiny pinging sounds, causing minimal damage but creating hairline cracks in the perfect crystal matrix that formed the ship's armor. The cracks began spreading slowly, disrupting the harmonic frequencies that powered the alien vessel systems. Meanwhile, the Binary Dawn attempted to take control of the human ship's computers using quantum infiltration protocols that had never failed against any known technology. General Thane's collective intelligence reached out through subspace, expecting to find the typical AI networks that govern all advanced starships. Instead, they encountered something that made no sense to their cybernetic minds. The human ship was controlled by biological brains making decisions based on intuition, experience, and emotional responses rather than logical algorithms. When the Nexus probes tried to predict human tactical choices, they found patterns that changed constantly, decisions that seemed to be made by throwing dice rather than calculating optimal outcomes. Their command structure is completely irrational, Thane transmitted to his fellow commanders. They make tactical decisions based on factors that don't exist in our databases. My systems are experiencing feedback errors trying to process their thought patterns. War leader Grix had seen enough defensive maneuvering. The Iron Fist was built for direct assault, and he decided to end this embarrassment with a traditional ramming attack that no ship in the galaxy had ever survived. His massive vessel turned toward the Defiant, engines roaring to life as thousands of tons of armor hull accelerated toward the human ship. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned Corvin tactics, Grix snarled, his ship's ram prow extending from the front hull. The Iron Fist had broken the backs of enemy dreadnoughts with this maneuver, and no ship the size of the human vessel could possibly survive a direct collision. The Defiant didn't turn away as expected. Instead, it began accelerating directly toward the incoming Corvin ship, as if Captain Reed intended to meet the collision head-on. The alien commanders watched in amazement as the tiny human vessel picked up speed, racing towards certain destruction with what appeared to be suicidal determination. At the last possible second, when collision seemed inevitable, the Defiant executed a maneuver that defied every known law of space combat. The ship spun through 3 dimensions simultaneously while maintaining its forward momentum, corkscrewing around the Iron Fist hull in a spiral pattern that brought its weapons to bear along the entire length of the Corvin vessel. Captain Reed's gunners had been waiting for this moment. As the Defiant spiraled past the Iron Fist, every weapon on the human ship fired in sequence, each shot precisely timed to strike the same section of enemy armor. The kinetic rounds didn't just impact randomly. They hit in patterns that created stress fractures, each subsequent shot widening the cracks left by the previous one. War leader Grix felt his ship shudder as the human weapons found weak points in his armor that shouldn't have existed. How did they know where to aim, he growled, watching damage reports flood his tactical display. The ancient debris field that surrounded the battle zone suddenly became Captain Reed's weapon as the human commander demonstrated tactics that no alien military academy had ever conceived. Instead of treating the floating wreckage as obstacles to avoid, the Defiant began using the twisted metal and broken hull plates as extensions of its own arsenal. Blake, give me a trajectory calculation on that broken cruiser hull at bearing 27 Mark IV. Reed called his engineering chief. I want to know exactly where it'll be in 30 seconds, if we nudge it with a controlled explosion. Chief Engineer Blake's fingers danced across his console, his mind working through physics equations that would have challenged most computers. If we detonate a microcharge on its port side, it'll tumble directly into the Altari ship's predicted course, sir. They'll have to break their attack pattern to avoid collision. Dr. Walsh looked up from her sensor readings, her face showing a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Captain, their crystal matrix is actually vulnerable to random impacts. Each piece of debris that hits them creates more harmonic disruptions. It's like their perfection is working against them. The Defiant fired a single small explosive charge at a piece of wreckage the size of a shuttle. The explosion sent the debris spinning toward the crystal harmony, just as Admiral Kex was preparing another reality-bending attack. The Altari commander was forced to abort his weapon charge to avoid the incoming debris, disrupting the delicate resonance patterns his ship required for maximum effectiveness. They're using our environment against us, Kex transmitted to his fellow commanders, his crystalline voice carrying notes of frustration that his species rarely experienced. This is not how civilized warfare is conducted. General Thane's collective consciousness was struggling with an even greater problem. Every time his quantum processors tried to analyze human tactical patterns, they encountered decision-making processes that seemed to operate on principles outside known logic. The humans appeared to be fighting 3 separate battles simultaneously, with each crew member improvising solutions that somehow worked together perfectly. Their coordination makes no sense, Thane reported, his mechanical voice carrying static that indicated processing errors. They have no central AI directing their actions, yet they achieve perfect tactical harmony through methods I cannot classify or predict. Navigator Cole suddenly called out from her station, "Captain, the Nexus ship is trying to hack our navigation system again. Should I activate the countermeasures?" Reed smiled slightly. "No, let them in. Give them access to our old navigation logs from the Jupiter mining runs. That should keep their computers busy for a while." The Binary Dawn's infiltration program suddenly found themselves drowning in terabytes of seemingly random data about asteroid mining operations, cargo manifests for ice haulers, and maintenance schedules for deep space mining equipment. The information was completely useless for tactical purposes, but the Nexus Collective couldn't determine what was important and what wasn't. So their systems began analyzing everything in desperate search for strategic intelligence. War leader Grix had recovered from the damage to his ship and was preparing for another assault when he noticed something that chilled his warrior's heart. The Defiant wasn't just avoiding his attacks. It was learning from them. Each time he fired his antimatter cannons, the human ship adjusted its defensive patterns, not just to avoid the current shots, but to anticipate future firing solutions. "They're adapting faster than our tactical computers can compensate," he growled to his weapons officer. "Every attack pattern we use becomes less effective against them." Lieutenant Blake was running the Defiant's engineering systems far beyond their design limits, rerouting power through circuits that were never meant to handle such loads. Steam vented from overheated conduits while warning lights flashed throughout the ship, but somehow everything continued functioning. The human vessel was operating in a controlled state of barely contained disaster that would have destroyed any other ship. "Sir, I'm reading stress fractures in hull, power fluctuations in 3 major systems, and our main engine is running at 120% capacity," Blake reported calmly. "Everything's working perfectly." Dr. Walsh had been analyzing the alien ship's tactical doctrines and made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I think I understand why we're winning. They've spent thousands of years perfecting their combat systems, making them incredibly efficient at fighting enemies that behave logically. But we don't behave logically. We're improvisers who turn mistakes into opportunities." The proof came when a malfunction in the Defiant's targeting system caused a spread of kinetic rounds to fire in completely wrong directions. Instead of correcting the error, Captain Reed watched the projectiles ricochet off debris and strike all 3 alien ships from unexpected angles simultaneously. "Beautiful," Reed murmured. "Blake, can you recreate that malfunction on demand?" "Already working on it, sir. I love it when our broken systems work better than their perfect ones." Admiral Kex was experiencing something his species had not felt in millennia: uncertainty. His crystal matrix computers were designed to achieve perfect harmony through mathematical precision, but the human tactics introduced chaos variables that disrupted every calculation. The cracks in his hull were spreading, and with each new impact from debris or ricocheting projectiles, his ship's harmonic resonance became more unstable. The Nexus Collective was facing an even greater crisis. General Thane's interconnected consciousness was starting to fragment as it tried to process human unpredictability. The Collective had achieved perfect unity by eliminating individual thought, but now they needed individual creativity to counter human tactics, and they had forgotten how to think as separate beings. "My systems are experiencing cascade failures," Thane transmitted, his voice distorting with electronic interference. "The human thought patterns are creating logical paradoxes in our processing cores. How do they make decisions without calculating optimal outcomes?" War leader Grix was discovering that his greatest strength, the ability to overwhelm enemies through superior firepower and armor, meant nothing against opponents who treated his attacks as interesting challenges rather than existential threats. Every time he hit the human ship, they found ways to use the damage to their advantage. The three alien commanders realized they were no longer executing their battle plans. Instead, they were reacting to human moves, trying to counter tactics that seemed to change faster than they could adapt. For the first time in their military careers, they were fighting an enemy that appeared to thrive on disadvantage and turned failure into success. Captain Reed stood in the center of his smoke-filled bridge, watching his crew work miracles with damaged systems and impossible odds. "This is what humans do best," he said quietly to Dr. Walsh. "We take things that shouldn't work and make them work anyway." The three alien commanders made their final desperate decision as their individual tactics continued to fail against the impossible human ship. Admiral Kex's crystalline form pulsed with urgent harmonics as he opened a channel to his fellow warriors, his perfect voice now carrying undertones of something his species rarely experienced: fear. "We must coordinate our ultimate weapons," Kex transmitted to General Thane and War Leader Grix. "A combined assault using our most powerful systems simultaneously. No ship in galactic history has survived the Trinity attack." General Thane's collective consciousness struggled to process the concept of cooperation with other species, but his cybernetic logic cores calculated that individual failure was now inevitable. "Agreed. My quantum cascade torpedoes will destabilize their hull at the molecular level, while your reality beam unmakes their atomic structure." War Leader Grix slammed his armored fist against the command throne, his warrior pride burning with the shame of being outfought by primitives. "The iron fist will ram them at maximum velocity, while your weapons tear them apart. Nothing can survive antimatter collision combined with reality manipulation and quantum destruction." Captain Reed watched the alien ships move into perfect formation, their weapons charging with energies that registered off the scale of his instruments. Dr. Walsh's sensor readings showed power buildups that could crack planets, and Lieutenant Cole's navigation display calculated that evasion was mathematically impossible given the coordination of the attack vectors. "Sir, they're preparing something big," Blake reported from his engineering station, steam still venting from overloaded systems throughout the ship. "Energy readings are beyond anything we've encountered. Whatever they're planning, it's designed to end this fight permanently." Reed studied the tactical display, showing the three massive alien ships converging on its position with weapons that could annihilate entire fleets. His crew waited for orders to retreat or surrender, but their captain had no intention of backing down now. "Set course directly toward their formation. Full speed ahead." "Sir," Navigator Cole asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice for the first time during the battle. "You want us to fly into their combined attack?" "That's exactly what I want," Reed replied calmly. "Blake, I need everything our engines can give me, plus whatever you can coax out backup systems. Walsh, prepare all remaining weapons for point-blank engagement. Cole, plot a course that takes us through the center of their formation." The alien commanders watched in disbelief as the battered human ship accelerated directly toward their coordinated assault instead of attempting to flee. The Defiant's hull was already damaged, systems sparking and venting atmosphere, yet it charged forward like a predator rather than prey. "They've lost their minds," Admiral Kex observed, his crystal matrix resonating with confusion. "No rational being flies into certain destruction. Perhaps madness is their final tactic." General Thane calculated, his collective trying to process the logic of suicide attacks. They intend to deny us victory through self-destruction. War leader Grix felt a grudging respect for the humans' courage even as he prepared to crush them. At least they die like warriors. Fire all weapons. The Trinity attack launched simultaneously, 3 streams of ultimate destruction converging on the approaching human vessel. The reality-warping beam twisted space-time itself. The quantum cascade torpedoes unravel matter at the subatomic level, and the antimatter ram promised to convert everything it touched into pure energy. The combined assault represented the pinnacle of 3 different civilizations' military might. Captain Reed watched the approaching wall of annihilation and gave his final order. All hands, embrace the storm. The Defiant plunged directly into the Trinity attack, its hull immediately beginning to come apart under forces that defied comprehension. But instead of being destroyed, the human ship began doing something impossible. It started using the alien weapons against each other. The reality beam space-time distortions caught the quantum torpedoes and redirected them toward the Iron Fist antimatter ram, causing a cascade reaction that created a temporary wormhole. The Defiant flew through the wormhole just as it collapsed, emerging behind the alien formation with hull glowing from absorbed energies. Impossible, Kex whispered as his instruments showed the human ship not only surviving, but somehow gaining power from their ultimate weapons. They turned our own attacks into a transportation method. The Defiant's response was swift and decisive. Captain Reed's gunners fired every remaining weapon at point-blank range into the rear sections of all 3 alien ships, targeting not their heavily armored sections, but their engine cores and power distribution networks. The kinetic rounds, traveling at incredible velocity from such close range, punched through rear armor that was designed to deflect attacks from the front. But the real devastation was psychological. War leader Grix watched his tactical displays flicker and fail as he realized his enemy had done more than damage his ship. They had broken something fundamental in his understanding of warfare. How do they turn our strengths into their advantages? He asked the empty air. General Thane's collective consciousness began experiencing something unprecedented. Individual thoughts emerging from the unified mind as different processing cores try to understand human tactics. The collective started fracturing as cybernetic minds attempted to think creatively for the first time in centuries. We are becoming separate, Thane transmitted in growing panic. Admiral Kex felt his crystal matrix developing stress fractures that had nothing to do with physical damage. The mathematical perfection his species had achieved was being shattered by exposure to pure chaos, and his harmonic resonance was becoming discordant as it tried to process human unpredictability. The 3 alien ships, despite their massive technological advantages, found themselves drifting powerless in space as their crews struggled with the psychological impact of defeat. They had not just lost a battle. They had discovered that their entire understanding of warfare was incomplete. Captain Reed stood on his damaged bridge, surveying the smoking consoles and sparking circuits that somehow continued to function. His crew had fought beyond every reasonable limit and proven something that would change galactic history forever. "Open a channel to the Galactic Council," he ordered. The transmission went out across the galaxy to billions of watching beings, Reed's voice carrying the quiet confidence that had never wavered throughout the impossible battle. "This is Captain Reed of the U.S. Defiant. We didn't win because our technology was better. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because sometimes the best strategy is having no strategy at all." Admiral Voss received the transmission aboard the Council flagship and smiled with pride at his species' first representatives in deep space. The test was over, and humanity had not just passed. They had redefined what it meant to be a galactic power through the simple act of refusing to be broken by impossible odds.